here's what's going on with this weird reconstruction project here. I don't really understand it. Looks like this old house and this other building and maybe the one beyond it and this old shed are going to be rehabbed somehow in this crummy old garage. I'm really glad that these annoying neighbors are gone. They were really horrible to put up with for years. They would make a lot of noise at night in their garden in the back, and the father would abuse the kids and the wife, and you can just hear everything, Now, you might say, well, if you don't like it, don't live in an urban setting. There are actually very strong and firm rules about noise and nuisance things here in France. My spouse can be kind of a dick at times, but if I run like appliances very early in the morning, because I get up really early, I have to get up at around 5 a.m. most days for what little work I do. Or if it's after like 7 or 8 p.m. and I want to hammer a nail in the wall or something and he's here, he reminds me not to do that, and instead of arguing with him, I say, oh yeah, you're right. Really, he is. And, the police can't even come here in France and arrest you and stuff during the night. And one guy on YouTube recently was laughing kind of virtually because I said to him, up until recently, when there would be wars over here in Europe, there'd be a lunch break. They'd stop killing each other for a couple of hours so everybody could eat something, Maybe these are chemtrails, I don't know. But we've got a couple of airports around here. I wanted to... I have a rotten headache, and I had a hard week. But I got even with some people this week. I stood them up. They were so annoyed. Oh, I won't get into that. That felt really good. I was just really calm about it. They've stood me up so many times. So I gave them a taste of their own medicine for the new year. And I hope they choked on their crappy lunch. There are a lot of people who are into bugging out to rural areas, and my husband's family lives on a very, very old, we're talking, must be going back to the Dark Ages or even before, rural property out in Brittany, France. And it turns out that on the mother's side of the family, they're very, 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 very old, low-level aristocrats. But by the late 15th century, I think it was, they just said forget it, and they paid a little money to just totally get out of that. They didn't want to be part of the aristocratic system anymore. They just wanted to stay there and be farmers. It's really interesting what you can find out through the internet these days. My husband found out quite by accident also that there are 2 other families in that area still there. Same story, low-level aristocrats going back many, many, many centuries, and they just said forget it. They didn't want to do it anymore. They didn't want to pay fealty and be ordered off to war. They just wanted to settle down and be agricultural people, The thing about our place in Brittany, it's part of a very old hamlet that probably goes back to Gallo-Roman times, and not too much is known about it. And I really like it out there, despite the fact that in the past year and a half or so, I'm dead to my French family, so I'm not sure I'll ever go out there again. I would like to. I'd love to make some clips out there for you. It's a fascinating place. It's in the middle of nowhere between Rennes and Vannes in the Morbihan department, but it's near Ille-et-Vilaine. I don't know if I'll ever be out there again. I had gotten quite attached to the place. And my husband, it turns out, is not. And it had been a subsistence farm It's cold out. I'm chattering. My teeth are chattering a little. Until up to a few decades ago. And then my in-laws rehabbed it. It took them several decades because, you know, these restoration projects in France really take decades. It's just a couple of ancient stone cottages in a hamlet. You know, used to be kind of a little village. And they rented out one of the stone cottages for years and years to finance the restoration of the two houses, and they used one of the little cottages as a vacation place, and now they live out there in the two houses, which are connected. My husband calls them houses, but I consider them more cottages. The thing about living in rural areas, in places such as France, and most of France is rural, is that as long as you're fit, okay. But a lot of places, well, the city water, if you have it, it's outrageously expensive. It'll cost you like maybe $50 US to take a bath. And the phone lines are not buried. The electrical lines are not buried. There's no gas. There are no gas mains. So you have to use what are called bonbons and, you know, go and get gas in a tank. I mean gas for like cooking and stuff. And when there's a storm, you know, snow, rain, wind, whatever, you know, you will lose power for 6 or 7 days easily. And actually, there is a relatively high amount of crime out there in that area in Brittany. A lot of it is very sneaky. There's some witchcraft which goes on out over there, which sounds funny, but it's not, because if somebody's whole herd of cattle dies, it's an economic disaster for the family, from which they might never recover, ever, and they might lose their property. And people will break into each other's sheds and get into the freezers and steal the meat that they've gotten locally from their neighbors and had butchered, and a lot of really nasty stuff goes on out there. And a lot of people don't lock their doors, and they don't lock their cars, and right outside their houses or cottages or whatever, you know, people will steal their cars and use them in bank robberies and stuff. You have a lot of drunk drivers out there. You have a lot of elderly binge drinkers and hunters. The hunting lobby is very powerful here in France. And these are older white people, very conservative people. And on our own property, we can't even go into our little yards right by the cottages from September on. It's just too dangerous. And we've had hunters go by and their dogs go onto our property and destroy our stuff, and one of them once stole my pet turtle out of a tank, and it's just not pleasant. And we have quite a bit of land out there, and will until my husband inherits it and probably sells it. And some hunters do pay us a few euros here and there to hunt on it. It's an honor system, but you need to get a license and stuff. But we kind of laugh when the hunters kill each other, which happens a lot. But it's really not so funny, because a lot of the roads out there are only one lane, and they're not marked very well. And the roads don't even have known names or numbers. You know, people don't even have addresses. And it's just like really, really, really rural. And you can be calmly driving around a bend in a road, and once we nearly had a head-on collision with my husband's crazy gendarme cousin, or is it his uncle, I don't remember, who was just being a road hog, and he nearly creamed us. So as long as you're fit, you could be okay out there, but you know, you can't get the internet, and your portable phone won't work. We live below a pine ridge. Radio phones don't work. There are no satellites going by overhead. No airplanes. It's really deserted out there. And it's about 8 kilometers to the nearest pharmacy. And actually, they only got a phone out there about 10 or 12 years ago. The roads just become impossible. We could borrow a horse from a farm a couple miles over, where we know the guy who raises beautiful draft horses and trains them as plow horses and carriage horses and stuff. But it would take about half a day to ride to the village, and it gets to be really a pain in the butt going to the village only about once a week, to go to the post office, to go to the bank, to get your bread, to go to the pharmacy, to buy your food, whatever. So his parents retired out there around 1997, and it just really hasn't worked out for them. For them, retirement age was rather early in France. They were both 60 years old, and they both got quite ill just a few years later, and they were stuck out there. So think about it. Also, it's boring out there. It stinks. It literally stinks. My husband always says this. You know, the smells of the farm animals around, you know, the turkey farm, the pig farm, the cow farm around. It's just, it smells bad. And when they put the fertilizer, the sludge on the fields, it smells lousy. And also the noise of the farm animals just really bothers me. You know, you wake up at 4 in the morning and it sounds like you're in the movie The Exorcist, and it's the neighbor, you know, feeding his hogs. I mean, I thought they were being slaughtered, but they were fighting to get the food, you know. It's organic, you know, it's not a factory farm, you know, you can hear the animals. And the roosters crowing all the day, and the doves cooing, and the cuckoos cuckooing, and, you know, there's zero culture out there also, excuse me. And good luck even getting a basic TV signal. You know, we don't like TV, we don't care. But I would say think about all this, really. So this is kind of it might bother you, but I like to speak frankly with you all, and I appreciate knowing you. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing clips much longer or not, but it's been very interesting. All right, I have to go to the post office and check the mailbox and get to the store. Boy, I had 3 hours of appointments this morning in another city, and it was just exhausting. You know, dealing with those people is just really, really horrible. Okay, bye.